My story is a bit unorthodox, you could say. I grew up in a mixed family. My dad is Jewish and my mom is Chinese American. Everything that I grew up with was pretty American for all intents and purposes. That's like Hanukkah with Christmas lights, and Jewish deli was my Jewish culture, you could say. But I still had a strong connection to my identity. I started being an activist on my college campus after an Israel event we had was protested, and no one wanted to speak up for Israel, so I decided that wasn't enough for me. After a year and a half of advocating for Israel, I finally got to go to Israel thanks to Birthright. Through my experience on Birthright Israel, I learned that I am totally and completely Jewish just by virtue of existing as a Jewish human. I didn't grow up going to synagogue, I didn't have a Bat Mitzvah, I didn't know the prayers, but when I went to Israel, I learned about being Jewish in a different way. On our trip, the leaders asked us a question: what's your first Jewish memory? And obviously I panicked immediately because I was self-conscious that my answer wouldn't be as robust of a Jewish answer as my peers. But I was paired up with one of our soldiers, and he also didn't really understand this question because for him, as a Jewish person living in a Jewish country, he was like, all of my memories are Jewish. I exist, I'm a Jewish person. And so that's really what kind of helped me understand that being Jewish is not about how much you do that's Jewish. It's about this feeling that you have and that we're Jewish all of the time. I always come back to the moment where we climbed Masada. They take you to Masada so you can see the sunrise over the desert. There's something really incredible to think about this group of young Jewish people climbing the mountain in the middle of the night and being told the story in the very place that people decided to take their own lives because they'd rather not be than not be Jewish. After my Birthright trip, I decided I needed to get back to Israel as soon as possible, so I graduated from college and I did a Masa internship. And after my internship, I decided to make Aliyah and become a citizen of Israel, where I lived for 6 years. During my 6 years in Israel, I started an Instagram account about my life and talking about life in Israel as an Asian American Jew, and that led me into the activism that I do today. As an online activist, I see every day the impact that nonstop anti-Semitism and anti-Israel hate has on my generation and young people. So go see for yourself, go on a Birthright trip and experience Israel firsthand, and you will feel so much more empowered to speak out against anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. It's very hard to defend a place when you haven't been there, but that's why something like Birthright is extremely important. It was the first step in my relationship with Israel, which turned into my life's work as an activist. To anyone who maybe feels that they're not Jewish enough to go on Birthright, you are Jewish enough, not only for Birthright, you're Jewish enough in every area of your life. And if you're looking for that next step or something to help you have the feeling that you think maybe others are experiencing that you're not, Birthright Israel is definitely the perfect place to have that experience.